Every time we've ever talked about satanic child sex abuse rings here on Timesuck, I think every single time, with the exception of episode 415, the Kid Willie sex cult in Wales, and that mostly was just one creepy, pathetic dude and a handful of his half-devoted low-rent followers, they've turned out to be nothing more than the fever dreams of the paranoid. Ludicrous conspiracy theories only fit to be believed by those wearing the tinniest of tinfoil hats. From Pizzagate to the McMartin preschool 1980 Satanic Panic bullshit to the QAnon nonsense, so many conspiracy theories seem to orbit around shady satanic figures doing terrible things to innocent children. These figures, they hide in darkness, they put on robes, they chant and make sacrifices to the Dark Lord. They're mayors, governors, senators, police chiefs, even presidents. They're the power players behind these people. And they lure kids into their vans or private jets or boats or whatever other form of transportation they use to whisk them off to be taken advantage of in secret underground layers/compounds. Most of us know that these theories have no truth to them, that there's no organized, shady, international, powerful, satanic cabal of bigwigs waiting in the shadows to snatch your children for nefarious purposes, no matter how much your aunt on Facebook likes to say there is and repost those claims. But did you know that there actually is a recently uncovered secret global organization with true credible ties to left-hand satanic worship that does thrive on sexual abuse and is seemingly growing in abusive, exploitive, evil power that really is hurting children, an organization whose members communicate in secret, members who hide their identities and manipulate children into doing things like deeply lacerating their bodies, carving cut signs of an abuser's name into their skin, attacking their siblings, killing their pets, and in extreme instances, dying by suicide. In 2024, a reporting consortium including Der Spiegel, Recorder, The Washington Post, and Wired unearthed a sprawling international ecosystem that has targeted thousands of people and victimized dozens, if not hundreds of children, using some of the internet's biggest platforms that allowed them, continue to allow them, to abuse kids across the world. This group is called 764, sometimes referred to as the 764 cult, and it's named for the first three numbers of the founder's zip code. But that founder, not some political elite, not even an old man or a coach or a teacher or a Boy Scout troop leader or some religious official, not even a dad, just a sophomore in high school. The Satanic Panic of the 80s, with its claims of seemingly wholesome pillars of the community meeting for black masses and ritually and sexually abusing children, even sacrificing them, that might be nothing but the imaginings of the religiously paranoid. But something terrifyingly adjacent to that does exist online right now, and it's a growing international problem.
Words and ideas can change the world.
I hated her, but I wanted to love my mother.
I have a dream.
I'll plead not guilty right now.
Your only chance is to leave with us.
Wild stories of child sexual exploitation, even child sacrifice proliferating in the media, that's nothing new. Historically, the so-called blood libel, an anti-Semitic superstition falsely claiming that Jews murdered Christian children for ritual purposes, gained traction during periods of social unrest. Some idiots still believe in this today. Sadly, I met one in real life not all that long ago, called them out on their absolutely ridiculous beliefs. This is a guy no older than 35. Yeah, some of the rumors about North Idaho are for sure true. We have some really beautiful country around here. Sadly, some of it is populated by some of the most ignorant people you'll ever hope to meet. Anyway, this blood libel nonsense appeared in medieval works like The Life and Passion of William of Norwich, written in 1173 CE by Thomas of Monmouth, which told the story of William of Norwich, a young boy found dead in 1144 and accused the local Jewish community of his ritualized murder. Thomas, a Benedictine monk and a true religious nut, frames the killing that no historian I can find believes ever happened as a religious sacrifice mimicking Christ's crucifixion and called for the boy to be venerated as a saint. In a similar vein, Matthew Paris was a monk at St. Albans Abbey, another English Benedictine, and one of the most influential chroniclers of the 13th century. And his Chronica Majora included multiple anti-Jewish entries repeating blood libel accusations and painting Jews as malevolent and conspiratorial, based on nothing more than ancient hearsay. He elaborated on the death of Hugh of Lincoln in 1255, another case of supposed ritual murder. These works were constructed long after the supposed events and without a shred of evidence. But that didn't make them any less effective in their aims. And their blood libel was a powerful tool for inciting violence, enabling pogroms, and justifying social exclusion. Fast forwarding a whole bunch, and the Satanic Panic of the 1980s and early 90s similarly involved false accusations of satanic ritual abuse of children in daycare centers and other locations, areas that were supposed to be safe havens, and actually were, for growing bodies and minds turned into places of corruption, uncontrollable and deviant sexuality and violence. This had extreme real-world consequences. The prosecution of those involved with the McMartin preschool, the social outcasting of people interpreted to be Satanists. A lot of people went to prison. Some people died. People who were maybe just goths, people who were just misunderstood teens, people who were just regular folks in the community. Even still today, as we learned in our Dungeons and Dragons suck long ago, some police departments continue to think of games that deal in fantasy creatures or magic as demonic. So many false accusations that have ruined so many lives over absolutely nothing more than religious paranoia and unfounded rumors. More recently, the focus regarding "we must protect the children" has shifted from trafficking and adrenochrome harvesting of the QAnon conspiracy theory to protecting children from the pernicious influences of liberalism, critical race theory, cultural Marxism, and LGBTQIA+ ideology. And then too often, those leading the witch hunt turn out to be the real problem and the actual abuser. Still, these conspiracies and theories persist, and they continue to lead to real-world violence. But that's not the only way these conspiracy theories are dangerous. They're also deeply problematic because they distract from the reality of child sexual exploitation, known to law enforcement often as CSE, cases that do not, under any circumstances, tend to generally follow a pattern of stranger abduction for child rape in a dungeon. To get our facts straight about how CSE typically happens, let's first look at the definition. CSE includes sexual abuse for profit or exchange, including prostitution and pornography, online exploitation, including grooming, live-streamed abuse or distribution of CSAM, child sexual abuse material, and trafficking for sexual purposes. UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, and ECPAT, End Child Prostitution and Trafficking, they estimate that 1 in 8 children globally experience sexual violence before they reach the age of 18. That's wild, 1 in 8. Think about that the next time you're around a bunch of strangers at a concert or a game or a rally or protest or church or whatever. How many of them are pedos? Sadly, probably quite a few. So many skeletons in so many closets. This number may seem high to many, but it's likely that it's not even close to the actual number, which is sadly likely much higher. Underreporting is a major problem. Most child sexual abuse is never reported, especially when the abuser is known to the victim. Most victims suffer in silence and shame, a shame they should never have to carry around since it was certainly not ever their fault. Not ever. And speaking of knowing your abuser, that turns out to be the case most of the time, like almost all the time. About 90% of abused children know their abuser. They're either family members or trusted adults in their social circle, like a teacher, a coach, a religious leader. For instance, the United States has some of the highest CSAM reporting rates due to digital surveillance systems employed by organizations like the NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and platforms like Meta and Google that use technology to detect CSAM cases. But that doesn't mean that more kids are being abused in the U.S. than any other country. We're just better at catching it currently. But even with all that information, there are still things about CSE that remain unknown to most people, like the fact that many people who abuse children are children themselves. For instance, one study found that 16% of alleged child abusers presenting at child advocacy centers, CACs, in 2022 were children themselves. In the UK, the National Police Chiefs Council reported that 52% of all CSE cases in 2022 involved children between the ages of 10 and 17 offending against other kids, with 14 being the most common age. And how many of those kids offending were themselves being abused by adults or still other kids? I wish I had those numbers. Police in the UK received reports of 14,800 rapes and sexual assaults against children aged 10 to 17, where the suspect was classed as a child, the overwhelming majority being boys. And alarmingly enough, this represents a significant increase compared to a decade prior. What's the difference? Ian Critchley, a member of the NPCC, that being the UK's National Police Chiefs Council, said, I think that is being exacerbated by the accessibility of violent pornography and the ease with which violent pornography is accessible to boys, and therefore a perception that it is normal behavior and that the person can carry out that behavior that they are seeing online in the most violent way against other peers as well. And he's right. But it's not just porn. It's the internet in general. Today, many kids can find whatever they want to look at, be that porn or non-sexual but violent material that is humiliating, degrading, shocking, on all sorts of dark corners of the internet. And finding it doesn't make them psychopaths, it just makes them curious kids. And kids' curiosity needs to be protected. For, as I've just pointed out, most sexual abuse comes from the guy down the street, not some boogeyman you're never going to meet or ever see, but there are still boogeymen out there, like Bradley Cadenhead. Bradley Cadenhead would use that curiosity against dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of kids. According to interviews with victims, law enforcement sources, and court records, Cadenhead's problematic behavior started early, as he began watching online porn at the age of 8. His parents clearly fucking suck. His dad, Jeff, was around. His dad has talked about how he took his son to church every Sunday when he was very young. His mom, Heather, was around too, but his parents were having a lot of marital problems. They would divorce in 2016 when he was 10, and then mom would admittedly focus more on drinking, partying, hanging out with her friends, spending time in bars, than on raising her son, and dad would take over primary custody, and he seems to have been a little checked out as well. Kyler Monroe, my kids, not allowed to have their own phones, iPads, or computers at this age. And they were not allowed to roam around on the web unsupervised because the internet has way too fucking much easily accessible, horrible shit for a kid to see that age. Even if Jeff, was working as a single dad and couldn't be around his son all the time, he could password protect his computer, couldn't he? He could have put parental controls on various devices Bradley could access, but he didn't, and neither did Heather. And why not? Bad parenting. This kind of shit kills me. The elementary schooler from Stephenville, Texas, started to develop a fascination with violent torture pictures and video as well as gore, according to court records. Apparently, Cadenhead posted extensively on social media about violence, like back when he was a little kid, roaming around looking at violent porn, running social media accounts unsupervised before the age of 10. It's fucking crazy. He was getting bullied constantly. His home life was a complete disaster. In April of 2018, when Cadenhead was in the 7th grade, his father, Jeff, found him on the floor in his room, curled up in a fetal position, crying and babbling, and he had shallow cuts on his arms. This kid was crying for help. He needed help very badly. He said he called a mental health crisis hotline, was told that they could get him in an in-person evaluation in 3 months. Sensing the urgency, he said he took his son to an emergency room and then found a mental health facility in Wichita Falls, Texas, more than 100 miles away. One of several facilities that he said his son was admitted to and discharged from after brief stays in the ensuing years. He said the doctors at each place changed his meds and sent him home. We tried every which way we could to get help from him. No, you didn't, Jeff. You and Heather let him keep going online. It's like this fucking obvious problem right there in front of you. You didn't take away his access to getting on the internet. And that's what was fucking him up more than anything. In September of 2018, fellow students said they overheard Cadenhead talking about how he wanted to bring guns to middle school, kill the other students. His teacher told police she didn't feel safe with him in her class. She'd overheard him talk about making bombs, putting silencers on guns, watching killing videos on the internet, right? And said this all led to Cadenhead getting charged with making terroristic threats, placed on juvenile probation at the age of 13. A psychological evaluation determined he had, quote, disrupted mood dysregulation disorder, a condition in adolescence that involves a regular verbal outbursts, chronic severe irritability, and that he was, quote, affected by parental relationship distress, according to a summary in court records. The summary also noted that there was, quote, suspected child neglect by the mother. The summer before 9th grade, Bradley's mom, Heather, took primary custody of him, an arrangement both parents agreed to. Cadenhead started at Stephenville High School as a freshman in August 2020. As school resumed in person for the first time since the beginning of the pandemic, his parents told probation officers he began to vomit frequently due to anxiety, and that he stopped going to school after about a week. And now, without the structure of school, and without having to attend homeschool, Cadenhead was just on his computer whenever the fuck he wanted, apparently all day, all night. His paternal grandma, Kay Glidewell, said his mom had a day job dispensing medication at a local retirement home and was very permissive, quote, when it came to any kind of supervision. So report her to CPS, Grandma. Why wasn't his dad or grandma doing more to stop this? Why were they just shaking their heads, wringing their hands, shrugging, when it came to an obviously extremely troubled, now 14-year-old, not having to go to school, being online all day when they already know he has a proclivity for gory porn and violence on there. A few months later, January of 2021, Caden Head officially dropped out as freshman. His mama later told probation officers. She didn't do shit about it. She told the officers she had received a call saying Caden Head had to unenroll from school or she would face charges for truancy. Court records do not identify the caller or say if the person was a school employee. Probably was. In Texas, kids are supposed to attend school until the age of 18. Texas law allows school districts to file a civil case against a student or parent after more than 10 absences in a 6-month period. Caden Head was 15 at the time, not going to school at all. What the fuck? Sounds like the school district dropped the ball as well. And now, quote, the kid never left the house. According to Stephenville Police Captain Jeremy Lanier, he's also said his room and his bathroom were his entire existence. And his family just allowed that shit to happen. Instead of participating in court-mandated counseling sessions, Caden had also skipped out on those two, didn't get in trouble for doing so. Not by a family member, not by the court. He was now leaving home without permission, watching more and more extreme gore pornography, supposedly assaulting his mom, ingesting dangerous amounts of Tylenol and cough syrup, requiring him on at least one occasion, to be briefly hospitalized. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, his online activities get more and more debaucherous. On the internet, Caden found a world with even fewer restrictions on what he could say or do than in the incredibly permissive world of his parentless, teacherless home life. One day, while playing Minecraft, he met another user who deepened his interest in gore. He would later tell his probation officers. And that led him to Discord, a free voice, video, and text communication service primarily used for building communities and interacting with friends. It can be great. I've promoted the TimeSuck Discord community for years now. It's popular amongst gamers, developers, various other online communities for its ease of use. Features, voice channels, text chat, screen sharing. And it'll become more and more popular for kids beginning during the pandemic. Discord revolves around servers, which are essentially chat rooms or community hubs. Each server can have multiple text and voice channels. And there, Caden had discovered that, like on many apps, he could choose a username and profile picture that would completely mask his identity and allow him to be somebody else. Somebody really, really fucking terrible. Discord's users must be 13 or older according to the platform's policies, but according to a New Jersey lawsuit that's still ongoing, because Discord accounts are so easy to create, and because users can use pseudonyms, younger kids can evade the age restrictions quite easily, and adults can readily pose as children, which is obviously problematic. The suit would allege that Discord was aware that its young users were vulnerable, but it marketed its platform to parents as safe anyway, like advertising a feature that it said would automatically identify and delete direct messages that contained explicit images or videos. But from 2017 to 2023, the app's default setting applied that feature only to messages between users who were not friends. Everybody else got to send whatever super fucked up shit they wanted to send. And Caden Head soon found friends to share this kind of shit with. He learned to groom children on a server called CVLT. Guessing it's pronounced cult. Not a lot of info out there about cult. We do know that it was a sexual extortion server, a meeting place for people who lured children out of other servers on Discord and from online games like Roblox, and persuaded them to perform a variety of sexual acts on camera. Caden Head then started a Discord server called 764 in January of 2021, the same month he dropped out of school, named after the first 3 digits of Stephenville's zip code. And this will be the group that will grow from its humble and disgusting beginnings to become an alarming international secret society of sorts for satanic pedophiles around the globe. It's fucking crazy how this thing spirals. As he had learned on Cult, Caden Head would use his 764 server, along with the encrypted messaging app Telegram, to distribute CSAM, again, child sexual abuse material, and seek out vulnerable children to victimize. But it wouldn't just be child sexual abuse material. Along with CSAM, Caden Head would also solicit and trade hundreds of videos of extreme violence and animal torture under handles of Felix and Brad764. In addition, how-to guides on sexually exploiting and extorting minors online were circulated in their channels. That is so dark. Man, he was so angry. Guessing he hated other kids so much for a variety of reasons, including maybe being jealous of their better home lives, being bullied by them. He wanted them to hurt like he hurt. Maybe somebody had molested him and he wanted them to feel that kind of pain as well. The detailed instructions in his fucked up how-to guides documented how to feign affection, draw victims in, then turn that attention into negative enforcement, and sow self-doubt in order to bring that person to the edge of a, quote, borderline episode. One passage read, when they hit an episode, continue to break them down until they seem defeated. Beginning in June of 2021, Discord flagged Cadenhead's online conduct 58 times for sharing, quote, images of prepubescent females and males engaged in sexual acts or in various poses nude. The complaints included a number of Cadenhead's Discord usernames and an internet protocol address located in Stephenville, Texas, which were then sent to the FBI, but the FBI would not ask the Stephenville PD for the contents of Cadenhead's devices until over 2 years later in November of 2023. The fuck? Understaffed? Did they just not feel like helping catch some pedos? I don't know. Not aggressively nipping this in the bud will definitely come back to haunt the FBI. Discord, too, will later come under fire for its handling of this group, leading its vice president of trust and safety to tell the Washington Post that since 2021, Discord has, quote, prioritized rooting out predatory groups, aiming to protect privacy while using automated tools to check for abusive conduct. And these tools include machine learning models that help identify bad actors and mechanisms to detect and track groups like 764, and they increase their safety team. But still, even today, the platform allows anonymous users to control large swaths of its private meeting rooms, largely relying on other users and other users alone to report predatory conduct in these spaces. Cadenhead was able to keep victimizing the other children unfortunate enough to come across him on Discord. One such girl would go by the name of Eve in court documents. In the spring of 2021, Eve was a teenage girl from the Midwest. She found her way to an ultra-violent content drop server on Discord, where Cadenhead and other 764 members would occasionally drop videos in these groups and start pulling kids into their server. As Brad, Cadenhead convinced Eve that he loved her, and he got her to send him nude photographs of herself. Once she did that and they established a degree of trust, Cadenhead and other extorters who he shared Eve's nude photos with now threatened to harm Eve's elementary school-age brother or release her explicit photographs. Make sure her family and friends see them all. Make sure her classmates see them all. On video calls, they now start to urge her to kill herself. They convince her to carve their usernames into her skin, a form of mutilation known as cut sign. Then they pressured her to strangle her cat to death, which she did. After killing that pet, they then convinced her to literally behead her pet hamster on camera. Holy shit, and she did that too. Bite the head off or I'll fuck your whole life up, a user named Felix told Eve. She had no idea that was another one of Cadenhead's aliases. It's him again. Eve would do pretty much everything that Bradley and the other people on his server asked of her. Like one night, when Eve deeply cut herself in the bath to turn the water red, just like one of her extorters had requested. But then when she became scared and stopped, 764 called a SWAT team on her family's house. They called her school, told her principal that she had tried to murder animals, prompting school officials to file a report with the local police. No one from the FBI would reach out to her until December of 2023. Not sure why that was. The Stephenville PD would ultimately act when, in late August 2021, officers from Stephenville police seized Cadenhead's cell phone. By that time, more violence from these Discord servers had already bled over into real life. In February of 2021, a 22-year-old member of cult, Caleb Christopher Merritt of Spring, Texas, kidnapped and raped a 12-year-old girl in Virginia, and then shared all the grisly details with his fellow Discord pervs. He'd be convicted and sentenced to 350 years in prison. In Stephenville, an investigation proceeded. Law enforcement would soon find a cache of more than 20 files of CSAM, or CSAM, as well as photographs featuring Brad is a pedo and 764 carved into the flesh of unknown victims. Other videos showed a teen girl being held down and fucking stabbed. Captain Jeremy Lehner of the Stephenville PD would say that it was, quote, the worst stuff he had ever looked at in 6 years of working on child pornography busts. Cadenhead was now finally arrested. But by this time, there were dozens, maybe even hundreds, like him still in operation, who had trained over a period of months or years alongside him to abuse children in secrecy. One of them was a man who went by Duck, or how disturbing is his other handle, the Gore Butcher. Victims would label the Gore Butcher as aggressive, sadistic, cliquish, refusing to interact with underage girls he deemed unattractive, and running an invite-only chat dedicated to the Order of Nine Angles, and now a form of Satanism actually resembling the kind feared back during the 80s Satanic Panic, enters the chat. The Order of Nine Angles, sometimes identified by the acronyms ONA or O9A, is a satanic terrorist network that originated in the UK, but has since branched out into other parts of the world. Some scholars have classified it as a blend of left-hand path Satanism and Nazism. Left-hand path Satanism is a form of Satanism that emphasizes individualism, self-deification, and challenging societal norms and traditions. And to be very clear, the vast majority of Satanists, and there are so many different kinds of satanic worship, they do not engage in child sexual abuse. And linking Satanism in general with child abuse of any form is a harmful stereotype. Some versions of left-hand Satanism would not condone child sexual abuse, but in other versions, right, this stuff's always open for interpretation, like any other religion. The most cartoonish and ridiculous members do. Not all who practice it are monsters, but there are definitely monsters who practice it and who use its philosophy to justify doing shit like raping kids, since raping kids would definitely qualify as challenging a social norm. Circling back to the Order of Nine Angles, there are claims it was established in the 1960s. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It for sure rose to public recognition by the early 1980s, attracting attention mainly for its neo-Nazi ideology and activism. According to the group itself, it was established by a man named Anton Long, who was brought into some crazy pagan witch shit that had secretly survived from pre-Christian Britain in small isolated temples scattered across the Welsh marches. Some people don't think this Anton is a real name of a real person. But anyway, there were apparently 3 temples, and this woman united all of them, then brought in someone named Anton Long, who became the organization's Grand Master. And who knows who that woman is. Many think that Anton Long is actually a pseudonym for David Myatt, who is a guy who's had a long history in neo-Nazism, serving as a bodyguard for Colin Jordan of the British movement before joining the Combat 18 militia and becoming a founding member and leader of the National Socialist movement. In 1973, Myatt has claimed he formed an occult group to serve as a honeypot to pull satanic occultists towards neo-Nazism, but that he then left its organization largely to a man from But then he left its organization largely to be ran by a man from Manchester. 1998, Mike converted to Islam, remained a practicing Muslim for 8 years, in which time he encouraged violent jihad against Zionism and Israel's Western allies. 2010, he announced that he had renounced Islam and was now practicing an esoteric tradition he termed the Numinous Way. So he's fucking insane. Based on this ding-dong, as you might expect, this group's beliefs are pretty crazy. The ONA promotes the idea that human history can be divided into a series of eons, each of which contain a corresponding human civilization. Adherents believe that the current civilization is that of the Western world, but that the evolution of this society is threatened by the Magian Nazarene influence of the Judeo-Christian religion, which the order seeks to combat in order to establish a militaristic new social order which it calls the Imperium. Totally. Did you catch all that? Did it make so much sense? According to the Order's Strange, who the fuck made all this up and why didn't they spend more time on its teachings? This is necessary in order for a galactic civilization to form in which Aryan society will then colonize the Milky Way. 100%, of course, naturally. It advocates a spiritual path in which practitioners are required to break societal taboos by isolating themselves from society, committing crimes, embracing political extremism and violence, even carrying out acts of human sacrifice. ONA members claim to practice magic. At least they tell themselves they do. They believe that they are able to do this by channeling energies into their own casual realm from a, quote, a-casual realm where the laws of physics don't apply. And these magical actions are designed to help them achieve their ultimate goal of establishing the Imperium. And again, that word Imperium in ancient Rome. An Imperium was a form of authority held by a citizen to control a military or governmental entity. Perhaps unsurprisingly, this group also advocates for sexual violence, including sexual violence perpetrated against children. One Order of Nine Angles publication was literally titled The Rape Anthology, and it called for followers to seek, quote, spiritual arousal from violent sexual rape. And some part of that, or all of it, appealed strongly to Duck, aka Gore Butcher. And who actually is Gore Butcher? Gore Butcher's real name is Angel Louise Almeida, another antisocial high school dropout, this time from Ocala, Florida, with a violent past and a long rap sheet. By the age 19, Almeida had racked up several arrests in the Central Florida town, accused of car theft, domestic assault, vehicle burglaries, armed robberies. Served time in 2019 for stealing several cars. At some point after his release in March of 2020, Almeida moved to a relative's apartment in Queens, New York. His social media posts on Instagram and Facebook from that era show a young man enamored with firearms, drugs, threats of violence, the Order of 9 Angles, and child abuse. In several posts, he posed shirtless with a friend while toting a shotgun, wearing a skull mask balaclava associated with murderous neo-Nazi groups, brandishing a handgun at the camera while smoking what appears to be meth from a glass pipe. Oh, fuck yeah. Oh, he's exactly the kind of guy you want on crystal meth. Late February 2021, according to court records, Almeida posted a photograph of a bound, gagged, and half-dressed young girl with the caption, "Life's always been shit. Still, I see the past through rose-colored lenses." What? Almeida's online activity grew alarming enough, that a warning about his conduct made its way to the FBI in September of 2021, just a few weeks after Cadenhead was arrested. A tipster warned the Bureau that Almeida had allegedly posted pictures of children in bondage gear, threatened to kill other users, had met up with a 16-year-old in person, and was potentially targeting minors sexually. In October of 2021, as 764's notoriety online grew following Cadenhead's arrest, the FBI received another tip about Almeida's prior criminal conduct and alleged possession of firearms. He consistently posts animal abuse material and has even posted images of himself having abused an animal by chopping it in half, the anonymous tip said. He is extremely dangerous. He openly admits what he wants to do to children, posts his drug use online, even posts child abuse material. That fall, Almeida posted images on Instagram of himself posing with a handgun next to a flag of Temple of Blood, an American offshoot of the Order of 9 Angles, run by longtime FBI informant Joshua Caleb Sutter, and a photo of himself in front of a Nazi flag and a computer screen. A message on the computer screen read, quote, "I'm addicted to hardcore child pornography." He also literally wore a shirt that said Kitty Diddler. Fuck this guy. So outlandishly brazen. Thankfully, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms took him into custody following a November 2021 raid on the Queens apartment where he was staying. Along with the 9mm handgun and ammunition, investigators found devices that held hundreds of thousands of digital files, including reams of CSAM, again, child sexual abuse material, and communications with other members of 764, which would then finally get the FBI involved with Cadenhead and the wider 764 community. Digital forensics of Almeida's online traces show he groomed, quote, multiple minor victims from whom he solicited CSAM and whom he encouraged to engage in sexual acts, according to an October 2023 court filing. One girl was groomed between July and December of 2021. Almeida had sent her explicit images of himself, convinced her to send similar material back. He also groomed another minor in February of 2020 through November of 2021, both over online messages and in person. He convinced the second girl to produce CSAM of herself, to engage in sexual acts with him in person and worse. According to court documents, quote, the defendant held Jane Doe 2 at gunpoint while posing for a photograph, and he convinced Jane Doe 2, to cut her neck to allow the defendant to drink her blood. The defendant instructed Jane Doe 2 to study 764 doctrine and to distribute CSAM to others. Now let's back up to the fall of 2021, with Cadenhead and Almeida arrested. That marked 2 764 members, the founder, and the one who linked the group to an international organization of satanic neo-Nazis, who had now been taken out of commission. But disturbing damage carried out by members of the 764 cult, as it again is sometimes called, would continue. Actually, incidents were about to get even more alarming and more widespread. In August of 2021, on his way from Minnesota to India, 25-year-old Samuel Hervey was waylaid in Kyrgyzstan due to the coronavirus restrictions at the time. He spent weeks in hostels in Bishkek, the capital, tried to extend his travel visa as he ran low on money. He turned to social media for some connection, including this series of messages he posted on September 6th of that year under the screen name Asunder. I am very lost. Should I accept this is the end? I have no support system. I really think the worst part is not having anyone to talk to. Long ago, it had seemed impossible that Samuel would end up here. An elementary teacher remembered him as a brilliant and eccentric kid. He was his high school's valedictorian before he decided to study biochemistry at the University of Minnesota. After turning 18, Hervey, assigned female at birth, began transitioning by taking hormone therapy, also married another university student, Usama Hussein. And then during the pandemic, Hervey's mental health quickly worsened. He dropped out of the university, he separated from his partner, increasingly erratic and delusional. Hervey was involuntarily committed to a state-run psychiatric treatment facility in Minnesota in late 2020, where he was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a condition that causes delusions, hallucinations, mania, and depression. He was released in May of 2021 with medications to stabilize his condition. But Hervey would not take these medications. Instead, he would cut off his family and begin making plans to go travel. A few months later, he left for India on what he considered a pilgrimage to Buddhist temples. He told friends he was paying for the trip with government stimulus checks he had collected during the pandemic. Then in Central Asia, his mental health appeared to deteriorate further. Man, I'm like really fucking depressed. Like depressed to the point where it is likely to cause other mental health problems, he wrote in an October 15th message to an online friend. He turned to people he had met on the internet for help, asking them to send money. When those people suggested he seek help from family members, he responded his family members had all died in a civil war, which of course they had not. Poor bastard's mind had unraveled and turned against him. By October 30th, Hervey told someone else in a private message he had made a decision. He wrote, quote, "Dude, I'm going to kill myself." When the person asked why, Hervey replied, "Because it's the only way to love myself, I guess." That same day, Hervey created a Discord server dedicated to his suicide, and he named it Enhero Tempest. Enhero is slang in dark parts of the internet for somebody who is taking their own life. He began promoting the server and other spaces on the platform, urging other Discord users to join. And on November 1st, he came across someone he had not met before. This girl who went by FMLK wrote a simple intro message saying, "Hello, I'm looking for friends." But she wasn't looking for friends. She was a member of 764 looking to exploit and abuse somebody. She saw Hervey as potential prey, somebody whose death could impress the members of 764 and increase her social clout within the group. Even help her launch her own splinter group, like Caden had when he broke out from cult. She'd been a member of 764 since 2019, when at the age of only 13, she was scouring social media for gory pictures and videos. She joined chat rooms on Discord and Telegram for that group that called itself Cult, CVLT, the predecessor to 764. Drawn into the group and increasingly disillusioned with the real world, she began skipping her 9th grade classes, spending her time interacting with fucking terrible, just broken people she's meeting online. And then soon these interactions become, part of her real life. In the spring of 2020, she intentionally set fire to some dry grass near a rural village in her country, recorded a video of it. She then struck up an online relationship with somebody in the community who went by the online name of Kush. Kush was in his early 20s. He'd become a leader in the 764 group following Caden Head's arrest, and Kush had a plan for FMLK. He brought her into 764's inner circle, where a small group decided whom to target. One of her roles was to recruit girls who would cut themselves on camera, underage girls whose members would refer to them as cut whores. Holy shit, these people are so fucking damaged. Just zero empathy. Just no regard for the well-being of others whatsoever. They've just given in to total and complete darkness. She was trolling Discord in November of 2021 for girls who could be exploited when she came across Samuel Hervey. It was immediately clear that he was in the throes of a severe mental health crisis. When she asked Hervey why he wanted to kill himself, he replied by talking about aliens. His shape-shifting spouse sounded like he was talking about reptilians there, and a U.S. government conspiracy against him. It was so easy to encourage him. All she had to do was type phrases like, "When are you going to do this?" And "You can do it!" ! During the week they corresponded, Hervey planned a time and a place to burn himself alive. He wrote about how he would do it. The coming Sunday at an ancient pilgrimage site on a mountain just south of Bishkek known as Rescue Mountain. But he was worried that something would stand in his way, like his suicide server getting banned on Discord. Other Discord users had told him that they had reported his account for violating Discord's rule, but the server remained up, and his plans continued. He wrote to FMLK on November 5th, "Today is the second to last day of my life. I bought the gasoline today. Right now, I kind of feel like it was always meant to end like this." On the morning of November 7th, the 25-year-old sent FMLK photos of the plastic bottles he had filled with gasoline, and as he left his hostel for Rescue Mountain, he sent updates to the group that began assembling in his server. "I'm on the bus now," Hervey wrote in the server at 9:44 a.m. November 7th. At least 29 people were in the server at one point that day, and some were recording. On top of the mountain, Hervey prepared to set himself on fire, propping up his phone, sitting on the ground, praying, then dousing himself with a bunch of flammable liquid. And then he went through with it. He fucking lit himself on fire. A 27-second clip that later circulated online shows Hervey on his back, his body aflame, writhing on the slope of a snow-covered mountain as he dies. Meanwhile, those on the server celebrated. "We did it!" one user exclaimed, as others giddily laughed. "It's so funny," another said. "That is the worst possible death, man," somebody else said. Like they're not even talking about a real human being, like they're watching a fucking messed up cartoon or something. After another viewer declared, "Shout out to fucking 764," FMLK claimed credit for herself by correcting them out loud. "Big shout out to FMLK." And this all achieved her main goal. It made its way back to Kush. FMLK set it all up and found the dude, he wrote admiringly in a Telegram group chat the day of the suicide. Someone found Hervey's body at the pilgrimage site that day, reported to police in Bishkek. Authorities there investigated and ruled it as a suicide, which it technically definitely was. But fuck! One that was strongly encouraged by a group of online misfit psychopaths. A medical autopsy found that Hervey died of, quote, shock as a result of burns, thermal effect of high flame temperature. The authorities shipped Hervey's electronics, other belongings back to his family, told his mom that his phone had been set up as if to record the suicide. His family wouldn't know that he had been encouraged to kill himself until a Washington Post investigation tracked down FMLK as a now 18-year-old, who would say that she now deeply regretted her actions. But immediately after Hervey's death, the 15-year-old FMLK definitely did not regret her actions because she would do that same shit again to somebody else. In March of 2022, somebody told her that a teenage girl was openly talking about ending her life in a Discord server dedicated to suicide and depression. She directly contacted the girl, encouraged her to move over to a different server, the server she had created. A few weeks later, about 15 people watched as this girl put a plastic bag over her head and injected helium into it until she stopped breathing and died. And on March 20th, 2022, FMLK wrote blithely in a Discord server chat room that a chick killed herself. In another server, she said, "People say I make people commit suicide. Everything they do is their own choice. I only help them pick a choice." I was getting my big break, the girl would later remember thinking during Hervey's suicide. It was a competition of who could do the worst thing, so I obviously felt very cool. In November of 2022, police in her country confiscated her electronic devices because authorities had identified child pornography sent from one of her social media accounts. She would claim she was handing it off to somebody who had requested it. Even though the video of Hervey was on the phone they confiscated, nobody asked her about it. Instead, the police told her parents that they should get her a psychological evaluation. She was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, depression, and anxiety, and she started therapy twice a week, and she was not punished. Cool. By 10th grade, she would later say she realized that the members of 764 were scum. She ended up deleting all of her accounts associated with the group, but the damage was done. Reporters for the Washington Post would again track her down over 2 years later. "I feel very bad for what I did, even now," she said during one of several in-person interviews in her home city. "It's something that happened when I was in a bad space. I feel like this thing is going to haunt me for the rest of my life." Yeah, of course. Of course it's going to haunt you. You urged two different people to die by suicide. And then they fucking did while you watched and you laughed and you rooted for them to die. I mean, you bragged about it. I mean, yes, you were a kid, but I fucking hope that haunts you. If it doesn't, you're a complete fucking waste of a human being and just total sociopath. Meanwhile, by 2022, the FBI was now trying to do their best to find the 764 cult and its fringe groups, not only in the US, but abroad. At the Europol conference in the fall of 2022, an FBI team gave a presentation to European law enforcement agencies that kick-started criminal investigations in both Germany and France. Interpol was also brought in to help coordinate casework, but it was overwhelming. There were just so many members. And as though the members knew that the police couldn't arrest all of them, that it had taken them almost a year to arrest just two of them, things will get even more violent. After Cadenhead's and Gore Butcher's arrests, the 764 cult was now run primarily by a Romanian national who went by the innocuous-sounding handle of Riley. Real name was Francesco. And one particularly violent member of 764's new generation was Tobbs, a German man who had been raised by a foster family in Romania. He had joined the 764 back when Cadenhead still ran the server. A girl named Sophia, who was 15 when she found the group via another server dedicated to hacking, would tell authorities that Tobbs was particularly popular and especially psychotic. One of his pastimes was taking dogs from shelters, bringing them home, adopting them, and then beating them to death on film. Fuck. March of 2022, Tobbs attacked an 82-year-old man, causing severe injuries that hospitalized the victim for 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, he fatally stabbed an elderly woman he suspected of Roma or Jewish ancestry. streaming the lethal knife attack on Discord, and later uploading the video of the murder to Telegram. After the murder, Tobbs posted, quote, "I feel like God." When Tobbs was arrested in April of 2022, investigators uncovered child sexual abuse material on his devices and, quote, "a lot of material with violence in every imaginable form, beheadings, bombings, abused children," according to court records. He was convicted of aggravated murder in August of 2023 for killing the elderly woman and sentenced to just 14 years in prison. Ugh. Men like Tobbs, not sure of his age, but he is referred to as one source as the man, not even entirely sure what country this guy fucking lives in, seem to have achieved their dominance over kids by sheer intimidation. Other equally disturbing members of 764 were more charming and manipulative in their methods. The group's new leader, Francesco, aka Riley again, was charismatic, fluent in English, quickly became a main figure in growing 764's numbers after Cadenhead's arrest. Riley would encourage 764 participants to generate content from their victims, getting videos of them doing creepy shit like stepping on and killing birds, killing other animals and pets, for instance. 764 cult had become this huge, disgusting sort of pyramid scheme. Sophia, the 15-year-old girl who commented on Tobbs, was also one of Riley's victims, as unfortunately victims were frequently passed around amongst community members, treated as shared resources. Other times, multiple members would bombard her with attacks at the same time, hoping to wear down her defenses and get her to take her own life. Several 764 members would talk to Sophia about carving their handles into her skin over and over again. She was also coerced to cut a swastika into her skin. They would fat shame her constantly in chats. She developed an eating disorder, shed 60 pounds, became skeletal thin. And if their behavior didn't upset her enough, they could always traumatize her by showing her what other victims would do if she didn't. And these other victims would then rise in status in this fucked up community. She was present in the server for some of the group's most notorious moments, including the live stream where more than a dozen watched Eve behead a hamster. Another victim was pressured into eating her dead father's ashes on live stream. In exchange for completing these hideous tasks, the victims would experience a rise in status again within the group. Refusing meant the opposite. Whenever a young woman named Anna resisted Riley's request to produce content, Riley would threaten to send her prior images of self-harm to her parents. And all of this was now multiplying at an exponential rate, while Bradley Cadenhead's trial is still ongoing. In March of 2023, he would finally plead guilty to 9 counts of possession of child pornography. An Erath County, Texas judge sentenced the now 17-year-old to an 80-year state prison sentence, citing his self-described status as a, quote, cult leader. He began serving his time at the Estelle State Prison in Huntsville, one of Texas's highest security correctional facilities. Francesco, aka Riley, would then soon find that his time was also up in the free world. He was charged with possession and distribution of CSAM in the summer of 2023, convicted in June of 2023, sentenced to prison, but only got 3 years. Overall, prosecutions of 764 members increased significantly in 2023, with cases filed in the UK, Germany, and several U.S. jurisdictions. But it's hard to fight something that can simply disappear and reappear on other servers. And often law enforcement will make arrests for child pornography only to find out later during the course investigation that the perpetrators are involved in 764. In December of 2023, a Hawaii Joint Terrorism Task Force arrested 18-year-old Kalana Limpkin, charged him with CSAM distribution and soliciting minors through founding a Discord server called Cultist that they proved was definitely connected to 764. Several reports were filed against Limpkin for uploads of CSAM, even some featuring the sexual abuse of infants. Good God. Then in late 2024, FBI agents arrested 47-year-old Richard Densmore at his grandmother's house in Caliva, Michigan, a little town of just about 500 people. An Army veteran who had already been convicted of a sexual offense committed in 1997, Densmore allegedly went by the handle of Rabid online and took part in a new generation of 764 circles, new generation 764 circles. Also ran his own Discord server called Sewer. He boosted membership in Sewer by advertising live streams of children engaged in self-mutilation. These cut shows, they were called, engaged in sexually explicit activity on cam. So many sick, predatory, exploitive fucks. He threatened victims to cut themselves by telling them stuff like, "I have all your information. I own you. You do what I say now, kitten." Densmore kept child pornography and bloody images of rabid Sewer and 764 carved into victims' limbs. In October of 2022, he had tried to persuade a minor girl, Jane Doe, to send him an explicit picture with rabid carved into her bare chest. When she expressed discomfort with that request, he contacted another Discord user, paid him in nitro, this form of Discord currency, to help secure sexually explicit pictures of Jane Doe. Densmore's efforts were successful, and then Jane Doe, at the request of the other Discord user, sent Densmore and the user a nude video of herself with "Rabid" now written on her chest. These pieces of shit. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison this past November for sexually exploiting a child. During a detention hearing for Densmore, federal prosecutors highlighted his affiliation with 764, which they labeled an emerging threat. Oh, it's already emerged, and it's still spreading. Back in January of 2024, as Richard Densmore was being indicted, Brazilian authorities arrested 2 teenage leaders of a suspected splinter group. The operation, led by federal police, codenamed Discordia, carried out 7 search warrants in 5 Brazilian states. And in February of 2024, federal law enforcement arrested 24-year-old Kyle Spites of Friendsville, Tennessee, a little town of just about 900, southwest of Knoxville, on child sexual exploitation charges. Federal agents seized Spitz's phone following a series of chaotic events during which his mother's boyfriend shot him in the ear. On Spitz's phone, according to court records, federal agents found CSAM of a minor victim under a folder labeled with her name and a Telegram account under the username Criminal, which Spitz allegedly used to distribute the 12-year-old girl's CSAM to other users. Then in February of 2024, a 14-year-old from the city of Lethbridge in Alberta, Canada, was linked to the 764 network and was arrested on charges of distributing child pornography, non-consensual distribution of intimate images, and possession of explosives. Holy shit. A month later, in March 2024, Cameron Finnegan, 19-year-old from Horsham, UK, known as Acid, is arrested, another creep connected to 764. In January of 2025, he pled guilty to encouraging suicide, possessing a terrorism manual, and possessing indecent images of a child. He was sentenced to 6 years in jail, and at the time, the BBC reported that at least 4 other British teens had been arrested in connection with 764. And there were several others arrested internationally in 2024. Fast forwarding to 2025, this year, the group's infamy also helped it serve as an inspiration to other dirtbags. The Antioch school shooter, 17-year-old Solomon Henderson, made references to 764 in social media posts before the attack. Solomon opened fire inside a Nashville school's cafeteria, killing one student, injuring another student before he committed suicide back on January 22nd, 2025. On February 11th of this year, Jairo Jamie Tinahero, self-identified member of the wider 764 network, pled guilty to various counts, including racketeering conspiracy, possession of CSAM, and conspiracy to murder. Tinahero was a member of a splinter group, had groomed several minors to obtain CSAM from them. He had also conspired with others to kill one of the minors, a girl named Jane Doe in documents, whom they talked about murdering and disposing of in a barrel of acid because she would no longer provide them with sexually explicit videos. He posted on Telegram, "I'm determined to die. And if I gotta kill her, I can't let her live and fuck with dudes and girls while I'm sick and miserable. And I'm gonna live stream it." Tinahero also posted a picture of Jane Doe and posted, "I want to kill them so bad. Just show up at their cribs. Shoot 100 rounds in 5 seconds." Tinahero could potentially receive a maximum sentence of 3 life sentences or 325 years in prison when his sentencing finally comes through. Another arrest, another lengthy prison sentence, likely coming. But still the violence and exploitation connected to 764 continues. And now some members are planning mass violence. 23-year-old Hugo Figueroa was arrested in late February of 2025 in Spain for threatening a mass shooting and bombing in Valencia, leading to the mass evacuation of institutions across Valencia. He was arrested by the Civil Guard, who also confiscated his electronics. Figueroa is a self-professed member of the Order of Nine Angles and 764, and has used several online aliases, including Neo-Hitler 666. In April of 2025, Leonidas Veragianis, also known as War Online, 21-year-old and citizen of the U.S., residing in Thessaloniki in Greece, and Prasan Nepal, also known as Trippy, a 20-year-old from North Carolina, were arrested and charged for being the new leaders of another 764 offshoot. Veragianis was arrested April 29th in Greece. Nepal arrested April 22nd in North Carolina. These two might have been some of the worst yet. They were leaders of a core subgroup of 764 known as 764 Inferno, a group that operated through encrypted messaging applications. Like the others, Veragianis and Nepal allegedly ordered their young victims to commit acts of self-harm, carry out videotaped sexual acts, engage in psychological torment and extreme violence against minors. One of their methods of psychological torment was the creation of these so-called lore books, which 764 and other nihilist, violent, extremist networks use as a kind of digital currency. And these lore books often include sexually explicit content, images or videos of self-harm, screenshots of private messages between the victim and their abuser, and personal information on the victim like names, addresses, and the names and addresses of relatives. They were traded, archived, and encrypted vaults, used as a means to recruit new members through blackmail or to maintain status within the network. Thankfully, if convicted, these defendants will likely face a penalty of life in prison, which will be too good for them. And it continues. May 4th, 2025, the Brazilian police arrested a 764 aligned group that planned to attack a Lady Gaga concert in Rio de Janeiro using explosives and Molotov cocktails. The group's leader was in possession of illegal firearms and yet still more child sexual abuse material. Another member was additionally charged for live streaming setting a fucking homeless man on fire. Authorities also arrested and charged a third person with terrorism, who they accused of planning to perform a satanic human sacrifice of either a young child or actual baby during the concert. Just a few weeks later, May 19th, 2025, a 14-year-old with ties to 764 is convicted in Swedish court for stabbing a 55-year-old woman. But because he's a minor, he faces no punishment. Come on, Sweden! Fucking step it up! And is only ordered to pay 160,000 kroner in damages to the woman. That's fucking insane! Just fucking stabbed her. June 18th, 2025, based on an FBI notice and evidence secured back in September of 2023, a house search that time, German authorities announced the arrest of a 20-year-old German-Iranian man in Hamburg who was described as a leading figure in 764, acting under the online name of White Tiger. He's accused of over 120 offenses. So many sexual crimes, murder, multiple cases of attempted murder, and I could go on and on. There are now simply so many of these pieces of shit online, so many that ABC reported back in May of 2025 that, quote, every FBI field office in the country has at least one open case on the group. That means that all of the agency's 55 field offices currently have at least one 764 related case. Who knows how much other shit's going on internationally? It's not clear how anyone is going to ever truly shut them all down. I mean, how do you destroy an ideology? We can continue trying to root them out one by one, and while that will lead to more and more arrests, and while that should be done, it will not destroy the entire group. You can take down all the Discord, but obviously Discord wants to keep making money. So do the many people who make their livings as streamers or influencers using the platform. It's not Discord's fault, not other users' fault that these bastards abuse this business. And if Discord shuts down, some other business will inevitably pop up to take its place, or these creeps will just move over to something similar that already exists. Something that might even make it easier for these dirtbags to, keep manipulating and abusing and recruiting children into the ranks. Children who then go on to manipulate and abuse other children. What if you could get rid of this group by just getting rid of all anonymity on the internet? Would that be the right thing overall to do? Shouldn't all of us be able to have some privacy, be able to look at stuff without some NSA agent looking over our shoulder? I mean, shit, if I didn't have some privacy, I would have already been brought in and interrogated 100 times at least for all the shit I've looked up online related to researching various episodes like this one. I mean, for this one, I asked a question online of what's a 764 lore book? Does it have child porn in it? Right? If the NSA is watching, cue me yelling, "No, I'm not a pedo. I just wanted to be able to accurately convey to my audience what they actually do," as I'm stuffed into the back of a police cruiser in handcuffs. We should be able to talk to people, to encounter new ideas, enjoy some anonymity if we want online, especially people living under totalitarian regimes where the internet offers a borderless experience of info and connection. And yet that same privacy allows groups like 764 to exist. It's crazy, right? So check in with your kids. Find out what they're doing online. Restrict their access to portions of the internet if you need to. The technology to do that, it does exist. This is a real problem. This is not conspiracy. I never bought the whole dudes wearing robes and torturing kids from around town in secret ceremony, satanic panic shit, mostly because that's too much fucking work. Right? How is that going to be kept secret? We would have caught numerous rings by now. People always talk, they rat out others. Right? You're going to see fucking creeps wandering around in robes, be like, what's the mayor doing? There'd be evidence. But this internet form, right? This makes sense because these fuckers don't have to reveal their identities. They don't have to leave their bedrooms. They don't have to buy a cloak. They don't have to know any lore. They don't have to be rich and powerful and influential, capable of bribing officials to look the other way and have their dirty work covered up. They just got to be tech savvy, have a laptop, or not even just have a phone, and be morally fucked up. Are they really Satanists? I doubt it. Not in any sense of like a religious way, not in any sense that they actually understand any kind of any particular ideology. They just like, taboo shit. They just want to embrace whatever is dark as possible. Ooh, Nazi? That's really bad, right? Oh, fuck yeah, I'm in. Satanist, that's the worst, right? Hell yeah, let's fucking do it. They just hate everything. They're just angry and damaged. They just embrace a message of fuck social norms and laws. Let's actively do shit that goes against society. Let's burn it all to the ground. But I guess, that's enough, right? That's enough to achieve the same outcome that parents, worried about back in the 80s with Satanic Panic stuff. You really, truly probably don't have to worry about some local coven of cartoonish satanic caricatures kidnapping your kid and taking him to be sacrificed beneath your local Masonic temple, but you do have to worry about your kid being sexually exploited, abused, and even pressured into killing themselves while they remain in the supposed safety of their bedroom by some online boogeyman who thinks they're a Satanist at the very least, who never has to leave their bedroom to do all of that. And that's it for this edition of Time Sucks, Short Sucks. Holy shit. This is, I think, the most disturbing one I've done so far. Maybe the most disturbing episode just overall. This thing is fucking terrifying. I'm glad my kids are a little older. I am worried, for friends that have kids that are a little younger. Man, you just have to keep a close eye on them. Who knows how many similar groups like this are out there? Who knows how they're going to proliferate, Ugh. If you're entertained by this story, I don't want to say enjoy. Check out the rest of the Bad Magic Catalog. It's not always this dark. Beefier episodes of Time Suck every Monday at noon Pacific time. New episodes of the now long-running paranormal podcast, Scared to Death, every Tuesday at midnight, with 2 episodes of Fictional Nightmare Fuel, my horror stories thrown into the mix each month. Thank you to Sophie Evans for her initial research on this one. Also, sorry, Sophie, for finding this and wanting you to look into it. Thank you to Logan Keith, polishing up the sound of today's episode, making that cool episode thumbnail. Please go to badmagicproductions.com for all your bad magic needs and have yourself a great weekend.
Bad Magic Productions.